Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining us on a what is here in the UK a very sunny Friday. I have to give you a weather update now at the beginning of live streams. It's almost become a bit of a tradition already, frankly. We're going to be talking this evening about a fairly controversial topic of fixed penalties, which are now coming for drone flyers here in the UK, and give you some information on that and really discuss that as well. If you've got a point on this, we're going to come back to the live chat, but if you've got a comment on this, please do pop it in there. And we'll come back to them after we've played out the interview clip, and myself and Graham have made a few points on this particular story as well. But as I say, welcome in. Now, regular viewers out there will have seen our previous content, which was produced in collaboration with the NPCC, the National Police Chiefs Council Counter Drone team. This included a video where the police actually explain the extent of their powers in terms of specifically towards drones. Now, as part of the same legislation that those powers were given in, namely the Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act 2021, provision was also included for the establishment of fixed penalties for specific offences in terms of drone use. Now, to start off this topic, we have a full interview. It's actually coming next week because it's already the end of the week. It's crazy. On the channel with the team boss at the National Police Chiefs Council Counter Drone team, Andy Harding, discussing our work together and some of the collaborative projects that we're working on now, and also some exciting stuff that's happening in the future in terms of content as well. As a first look, I wanted to play a short clip from that where we actually discuss this topic, and then we're going to come back and have a chat about it. Here you go. He says famously, and the button didn't work.
Am I right that we do have a system of fixed penalty notices coming to drone use?
Yeah, there will be. The whole project at the moment is with the government, and I am told that things will be moving soon. Now, I don't know what that means. There's probably a lot of people out there that are going to have very different views about what soon means with regards to government. It could be something that's going to happen soon, or it could be a few months more down the line. I'm not too sure. But it's there. It is going to come. And again, what I want to do today in this particular segment is to reassure people that the reason why we are doing this is because we do not want to keep dragging people to court that are summoned as a result of a misdemeanor. We would rather deal with it there and then and give officers the ability to be able to, start and finish it at the scene, and that's it. It's something that obviously is going to help regulate and bring safety to the area, because penalty charge notices are only ever going to be issued in circumstances, obviously, that a law has been broken or safety has been breached or compromised. So that's the sort of the area that we're looking at. But it is coming. And
so you know the financial levels yet? Is there?
I don't.
Okay.
No, it'll probably be on par with low-level motoring offences, I would imagine, but I don't want to be quoted.
No, it's even a simple one, something that's 250 or something.
Yeah, I haven't seen the final detail yet, but it's going to be proportionate to what's going.
So in those scenarios, broadly, then, if I'm out flying my drone and I fly beyond visual line of sight, or I break the law, that there is a chance when they're in that actually the officer, rather than arresting me and confiscating gear and all that type of thing, will actually just say, I'm going to give you a fixed penalty notice today because you've flown beyond visual line of sight, or FPV, fly without spotter, or something, or something that actually breaks legislation, breaches legislation. Okay,
and don't forget that every ticket that is issued does have the facility on it for people to challenge as well. So just because you're given one doesn't mean to say that you can't challenge it and request a court date, because that can happen.
And just so we don't start a mythology all of its own with this interview, and this becomes a big thing in the community of all these things, and every little thing you're going to get a ticket for, to be able to issue a ticket for someone breaking the law, there has to be an absolute line of evidence there, presumably.
Absolutely, yeah.
So not, I'd say beyond visual line of sight, but it perhaps won't be that kind of thing, because actually, how do you
prove that?
There'll
be a number of offences. Each offence will be coded. and there will need to be a minimum evidential support for that code that has been breached. So yeah,
Excellent.
Okay, so that's the clip from the interview, which is coming up next week on the channel. So as Andy Harding explains there, the complex process of bringing fixed penalties for drone users into place is currently with the government, and as somebody said in the chat, with the government soon may mean never, and you know, we therefore don't actually.
We know what imminent means with the CAA, don't we?
So it means we don't have a fixed time for them to be actually coming into use yet, but we will of course keep you informed of any news on that. So if you are new here, if you're watching the replay and you're new, or if you're here live new, do hit the subscribe button to get that information as soon as we have it. Graham, how are you?
I'm very well, and you're absolutely right. Something has happened this week, and I don't know what, but it's gone.
It's incredible, isn't it? It is.
I think because it's nice weather.
Yeah, no, indeed. We are going to come back to the comments a little bit later, but I just wanted to pull one out just so it doesn't get too far away from. Anil Jedi, interesting to see what public consultation takes place to do this. I assume no primary legislation is required and a ministerial regulation. I foresee these being dished out by poorly informed PCs. The second part we'll come back to. But the first part, there was a public consultation on this as advertised on this channel. It was some time ago now, actually. And yeah, there was consultation for the entire Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act. And there was quite some noise back then, in particular regarding the fact that there would be new police powers within that, basically, yes, which I think was the thing that a lot of people were concerned about. Yeah, that passed through public consultation and survived, basically. So
and essentially it goes along with the air navigation order, sort of Article 265, where there's a whole load of penalties there, and it's sort of one of the powers behind those penalties.
Exactly so. So here is the, as I flash it up there, here is the legislation.gov page for this particular one, and the sections that we need to look at are, because there is a couple of interesting, apart from actually the first one here, being not much information at all, apart from saying Schedule 10 makes provision about fixed penalties for certain offences relating to unmanned aircraft. So
soon.
Yeah, so lots of information there. But then when you come down here to the schedules, and you've got Schedule 10 here, which is talking about the fixed penalties, there is a bit more information in there. Also, interestingly, it does actually say that Condition A, the constable, that obviously that they can, the constable may give P, the pilot, the person, a fixed penalty notice in respect of the fixed penalty offence if Condition A and Condition B are met. Condition A is that the constable believes that the person did not intend to endanger any other aircraft, whether or not an unmanned aircraft. So interestingly, they are going to limit them from the point of view that they think you were being, reckless, dangerous, then actually you can't be dealt with by this, which I suppose is similar to getting a fixed penalty on the side of on the side of the motorway. Once you get above a certain number of miles per hour, they can no longer deal with it themselves, and they have to report you to court and things, don't they? So there's always limits as far as what they can do.
But if you're trying to ram somebody with a car, or B, cause any person harm, harassment, alarm, your fixed penalty, it's this is the low level stuff, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. And as it says, cause any person harm, harassment, alarm, or distress. So if they think you're doing that, they cannot give you one of these. Cause any person occupying any premises nuisance or annoyance related to their occupation of the premises, undermine security or good order in discipline or in any prison or in any other institution where persons are unlawfully detained, disturb public order or damage property, including land or buildings, when committing the fixed penalty offence. So if you're flying beyond visual line of sight and they want to give you a fixed penalty notice, but they find you also doing one of these, and they obviously have the correct evidence, etc. That's a whole. I'm not, we are not legal experts. We are not lawyers, etc. So whatever that level of evidence is required, that they feel they can prove these other things, you're then going to get reported, and things are going to be obviously as before, going before CPS and then potentially a court case and all of that good stuff, and getting charged, etc. So it is literally these are literally intended for. As Graham was just saying, the lower end of the offences, basically. So this isn't going to be something that is, so for instance, the chap who flew his drone near the hurricane, he wouldn't have been dealt with via this, unless of course they decided that he wasn't flying recklessly for some, or endangering aircraft, etc., for some reason. So this really is side of the road, pulled you over, gov, and there is a minor offence has occurred, and rather than having to take people to court for those minor offences, they can give these fixed penalties, essentially.
Shall I throw up a scenario?
Go on, sir.
Right, I know there's some event going on, or something that a group of people want to go on drone, so there'll be some police around there who may well, an event of some sort, be some police there who are clued up on the drone rules because they're expecting it, and they'll go up and say, "Was a load of sub 250 grams, they're all absolutely fine, there's 5 of them there, oh, this one hasn't got a registration number on it."
Yeah, no,
Penalty
indeed.
fine.
Yeah, exactly, and it starts to talk as well to the whole sort of idea that the education, if they can't educate over it, then they're going to move towards something like this, and then if you're above the fixed penalty, if there's something that's there that you're doing which pings onto the next level, then if the correct evidence is there, then of course you're going to find yourself in more trouble. But it's a way, I suppose, of it actually being dealt with there and then. But
can we pull one up? Where's the paragraph? You cannot fly if you had drunk alcohol.
Yes,
that's one.
indeed.
Do not. So the alcohol levels are, I think, for if you're flying the specific category, I think they're half the drink driving amounts, aren't they?
Yes.
And for flying in the open category, it would be the equivalent to the drink driving amount.
Indeed.
There you go.
Yeah, indeed. On this as well, they've got the fixed penalty notices details themselves. So a fixed penalty notice is a notice offering the opportunity of the discharge of any liability to conviction of the fixed penalty offence, to which the notice relates by payment of a fixed penalty in accordance with this schedule. And yes, the drinking game tonight is fixed penalty. So every time I say fixed penalty, Friday night you have to take a very quick slug of something. A fixed penalty notice must give reasonable particulars of the circumstances alleged to constitute the fixed penalty offence, state the period which, because of paragraph 4, proceedings will not be instituted for the offence, specify the amount of the fixed penalty, state the name and address of the person, of course, specify permissible methods of payment, specify permissible means by which a payment may be made, which may include payment by post. A fixed penalty notice may specify 2 amounts under subparagraph 2C, and specify that the lower amounts is paid within X. Of course, we're used to seeing those again with things like parking tickets and all sorts of other fines, aren't we, basically? So where a fixed penalty notice specifies that payment of a fixed penalty may be by post, then obviously it will then specify the amounts as well. The effect of fixed penalty notice, this paragraph applies if person P is given a fixed penalty notice in respect to a penalty offence. So no proceedings may be instituted for the offence during the 21-day response period. So it obviously gives you that period, but the prohibition ceases to apply if during the 21-day response period they has given notice requesting a hearing. So obviously if you just say, hey, if within that 21 days you already say, hey, I'm going to fight this, I'd like my day in court, please, then they'll do that. The fixed penalty for a fixed, because of course we don't have, as Andy Harding was saying in that interview clip, we don't have the amounts yet, but the fixed penalty for a fixed penalty offence is to be prescribed by the Secretary of State by regulations, and where 2 amounts are specified in accordance with paragraph 3, the higher of those amounts must be the prescribed fixed penalty. So it's 1/2 of the maximum amount of the fine which a person committing the offence would be liable to on summary conviction, or where no such maximum amount exists, the amount corresponding to level 4 on the standard scale for summary offences. So it's very much standard for what you would expect to find on other fixed penalty situations, basically.
This won't be any different to legislation on motor fixed penalty, any other fixed penalties.
100%.
It's just that we're into drones, so we read it.
Yes, no, indeed, yes. So there is a link in the description to this for anybody that wants to go down and have a look at that. This is also in the description to the video on the police powers, because it is actually the as I say, it's the Air Traffic Management and Unmanned Aircraft Act, and you've got the items here, and I think it's Schedule 9, which talks about police powers. Yes. Schedule 8 and Schedule 9 are where those police powers are. So we are talking, as you're saying, it is something which is, a fairly standard thing that we're used to seeing in life, in general life. But obviously this is something which, for very specific coded offences, the offences will be given codes, you'll be given that. Now, there is, of course, an issue from the point of view that people are concerned over. We do have a lot of content out there of police officers sometimes getting it wrong. And I say sometimes, all that content shows that, to the point where we've even released a leaflet supported by the NPCC Counter Drone team to help inform a police officer. Now, the only thing that I would say about these fixed penalties is that they're not going to want to see lots of appeals. People appealing these and being successful will be a big problem for a police officer and a police force that are issuing them. And it's something that, in actual fact, probably means we're going to start seeing better training, if anything, because they're going to need to get it right, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll either see better training or very few fixed penalty notices. Because if they're not trained, they probably won't even know about why would they know about the fixed penalty notice and not the rules. I've scribbled down, if you want to avoid a fixed penalty notice, fly within the rules, but secondly, know the rules. And that doesn't necessarily mean know the drone code. That means know the rules. And we bang on about them a lot and go into a level of detail. But actually, if you want to have a sensible discussion with an officer, it's best to know those rules inside out, or as well
indeed. I mean, you have to see, and you have to accept that other side of it, that policing hasn't had the best reputation in the UK recently. And we do see a lot of clicky videos of people in stand-up arguments with police officers who, one of my first ones that covered it, where the officer talked about the FIA as the regulating body. It's one of those things where there will be fear there, but actually the fixed penalty system, the actual system that this relies on, actually needs proper evidence, actually needs things to work properly. And if they start issuing these things willy-nilly and there isn't any evidence and they don't have the information to back it up, or it is vague and wishy-washy, then actually there is going to be a lot of appeals won, and that in itself will start to expose the problem. Basically, it will almost take care of itself that way, in my opinion.
I would have thought that most of these will be from the sort of circumstance I've sort of suggested, where there's an event going on, where there will be trained officers who will know the rules. And will then, therefore, because your average police officer isn't going to come across this an awful lot. And, they've got...
I completely agree with that scenario. In actual fact, in my... one of the things that I think happens at the moment is that people get away with a lot of things at the moment, so therefore they feel that actually enforcement and police aren't that bothered by what's happening with drones at the moment. But actually it's because they would have to take you through the entire court process just for flying your drone 2 miles away, well out of visual line of sight, in a town centre, above Brighton or something, and flying right across the town centre to the other side. You'd be surprised actually how much enforcement do know about those kind of things. But actually, is it correct use of resources to gather the evidence, to find that pilot and to take them through the court system and actually have a court date and everything for a relatively minor offence, when of course, as we're told in these interviews that we've had, they have much higher priorities that the public and government would like them to focus on. So, things like, I suppose for us to try and estimate what type of things would be potentially ticket worthy, but wouldn't be on the Article 241 endangering another aircraft and that type of thing. I suppose blatant VLOS. I don't think you would have a situation where you would have, it being, argued. I don't think that's quite VLOS. I don't personally.
No,
I don't think you're going to stand there with an officer issuing you a ticket, arguing because he thinks it isn't quite far enough.
Well,
I think it's going to be your drone is out of sight completely. And also, they're going to have to be able to back that up in court should you appeal the ticket. So there's going to have to be some kind of evidence that they've been able to log, and however that works. So the other thing to bear in mind on this as well, which is why the visual line of sight live stream that we did the other day actually becomes even more important on this, in my opinion, is actually because these tickets will be enforced on the legislation, not on the acceptable means of compliance from the CAA or even necessarily parts of 722 and things. It will be on the legislation itself. So mainly 2019 947, obviously 945 is in there as well, but those air navigation order, etc., and 947 are going to be the main things. So it will be VLOS under those types of descriptions, rather than you're flying your Mini 3 beyond 90 meters, which is beyond the acceptable means of compliance. I'm not a police officer, I'm not a legal expert, I don't know the levels of, but I can absolutely right now guarantee you're not going to get tickets for flying your Mini 3 beyond acceptable means of compliance. That isn't what AMC is. It's not legislation.
It's a legal thing.
Sorry, Graham.
Because it's not a legal thing.
Yeah.
To that extent.
Exactly. It is as the CIA have confirmed on this channel previously. It is guidance, basically. It gives you the presumption. So I think that's a really important one to keep in mind. As far as other things, I think it's interesting. I mean, I would you think that they would deal with not showing an operator ID on your drone? Do you think that would be a fixed penalty thing?
Yeah, I'd have thought that would be a simple one. Yeah, if they know about it. Yeah. Not having an operator ID would be one. Not affixing it, so that's a 2. And whether they do 2 fixed penalty notices for that, I don't know. But these things do easily mount up, don't they? And I don't know.
No, indeed. And the fact that they're going to the Andy Harding,
they are separate offences.
Yeah, he said they are codes. Shows that it is going to be very much, these are the things which there's going to be very clear guidance for those. And
that would be an easy one to do the education on.
Yeah.
And a penalty notice at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Because as you were saying earlier, you won't have to educate the police officers on all of every part of the air navigation order that's related to drones and 947, etc. Just actually the bits that relate to the codes that they can give the fixed penalties for, if that's the focus, of course. So let's have a look at the chat quickly and see what people are saying.
My shirt's getting a little bit of
Graham's shirts are becoming legendary on this channel, and the
fixed penalty notice for the shirt. It's not fair, John.
Ah, really? Is that John Burns?
Yeah.
John, that's terrible. That's terrible. I think you're absolutely right, but that's terrible. Liam Carroll is saying, I think a lot of audit guys out there shed light on the lack of training the police have. Yeah, I whole other subject matter, whole other topic. I've said my piece on those particular types of channel before. There's a whole video on it, in fact, on here. But I think it will be interesting to see, because actually I don't necessarily think even the issues that happen in the audit arguments that happen a lot with the police are anything to do with drone regulations, actually. So it'll be interesting to see how it does impact them, though. Airframe FPV, I was at an outdoor concept town park, more than 500 people coming and going, lots of law enforcement, somebody flying a Mavic over the crowd, even interacting with people in the crowd. Is that legal? It could be. It could be. This is part of where the rules changed from the point of view that pre-2020 and 2019, 2020, it was a little bit more cut and dried. If you've got a PIFCO, you can do X, Y, Z. And if you haven't, then it was much more cut and dried what you can and couldn't do. These days, depending on a lot of things, it is more possible. People can have special permissions, like this gentleman next to me who has a special permission to fly to 1,000 feet with his drone, which is incredible.
I'd have to start 600 feet underground, mine. But
that's not true, actually. He's trying to be modest, but yes. So Graham holds an OSC, an operational safety case, to fly to 1,000 foot. And there are people who work within the festival world, the public safety world, who have very specialized OSCs that get them very close and that type of thing. It is worthwhile pointing out, because airframe FPV, it is much more likely that they shouldn't be flying over a crowd of people. So you're right to say, hey, could that possibly be legal? Because it is something which very, very easily could not be legal, frankly.
If they're low enough to be interacting, sort of, you jump up and I'll go up, sort of thing. That sounds like they are too low, and it's not something I'll be writing into an OSC. So.
No, indeed, yes. Could you imagine that popping down to say hello to crowd on the OSC? I'm not sure. Rampage Ryan is saying most officers don't have a clue. It would get passed on to the drone unit, who are too busy to deal with them. And I think that's going to be interesting, because we will either see, this again is just my opinion, we will either see very few of these being given out, and only in special circumstances, the type that Graham described of it being an event and therefore having trained officers there because they want to use these to as the next level above education when people are flying these things over crowds, etc., or within I don't think temporary restrictions, because even that would probably go on the danger side of things. So it will either be that, or we get lots of appeals. Either way, this could actually be a way that we start seeing a bit more sort of accountability on the police side of things to get to know the basics of the rules. But again, that's just my personal opinion. Duke of Devon, hi, good to see you. So now the airspace law no longer exists. The ground police are taking over. Well, in actual fact, here in the UK, the CAA defer, I suppose that's I suppose that's an okay way of describing it, defer enforcement, day-to-day enforcement, to the police. I think flight restriction zones are still very much enforced by the CAA, and I think they handle those cases, although the police will get involved.
And the AAIB, of course, which is the branch of, will investigate incidents, crashes. So
but certainly it's been the case for a while now that the police will do the frontline enforcing, to the point where in the drone code and any of the CAA comms out there, they'll actually tell you that if you see a drone that you're concerned about, dial 101 and speak to the police, rather than actually calling the CAA, basically. Oliver Dots, most flyers have a flyer and operator ID, do spot checks that people flying drones have the correct paperwork and leave it there. And you that would be a use that I could see happening 100%, because again, obviously with the extra powers that police now have specifically for drone use, they are able to check things like your operator ID if they suspect a drone flight's taken place, or that they actually have fairly significant powers to check things. So yeah, I'm sure that will probably happen. Now, it's down to the officer and down to what happens if you've got an operator ID, but it's not on your drone, and you say, "Oops, I haven't put it on this one. Sorry, it's a new drone," or whatever, or it's fallen off. And there's always going to be discretion, isn't there, and common sense, etc. But if you just haven't got one and you can't even show them one on the phone, then I'm sure that would be a really interesting one. Amok Time Flies, hi Amok, one of our channel members, good to see you, was considering going commercial. Now we'll probably just sell up and fly my kite with a GoPro on it. Yes. Well, to be fair,
that's how I nearly started.
Yeah, indeed. To be fair, Amok, I think by the time this happens, because this is going to take a little while, and a couple of other extra things that are coming in short order around it, I think we're going to then start to see some stability, and we're going to start seeing a little bit more continuity. we have another shock to the system, as it were, with the open category investigation happening by the CAA. So there's going to be public consultations, etc., in the summer. So we've got a bit of speed bumps to go through with that, and then of course remote ID. But I think in general things are going to start to plateau, and we're not going to see as many things happening from that side of things. The Maltese Falcon, when you get given an FPN by the roadside for speeding, you're given the option to challenge it there and then, and it gets sent straight to CPS or the Procurator Fiscal in Scotland. And this is the same fixed penalty system as we were showing with the legislation, and it does say if you choose to dispute it straight away, then they will start proceedings, basically. So they seem much more happy to do that. Nick B. Yorkshire, wonder if they'll send out a police drone to chase you, including the blue strobe lights. Yes. I did actually see a news story probably about 18 months ago now, when we had a lot of vaporware beyond visual line of sight, large drones being promised by all sorts of companies. And one company did actually produce a specialist police drone, and they had the blue tape on it, which is good for VLOS, but it actually said police on it, and it had blue lights.
Yeah.
It had actually blue flashing lights on this police drone. Enough said. It was about as dystopian as you could possibly get. Frankly, it was crazy. Yeah, and Fred Kraz actually is actually raising that point of what happened if your ID fell off during flight. How do you prove it was there, or police prove it was not there? Well, I believe the offence will happen because it's not there. So I don't think saying it fell off will necessarily be a defence, but I'm always reliably told that obviously it's down to the officer's discretion and that type of thing. So as I was saying, hopefully when you show them on your phone that you've got one, that you've actually got an ID, I think there's more going to be an issue from the point of view where people don't have one at all, basically.
And again, I'd like to think that an awful lot of this comes down to the conversation you've had with the officer, and if they think you're reasonable, then you're far more likely to get off with a right, okay, stick it on when you get home than a
although you know, and as you do have to temper that, Graham, though, with the fact that people do have lots of unreasonable conversations with police officers.
Absolutely.
And you know, that is a real issue, and it's a real issue when you're flying unique technology like a drone, and it's something that I absolutely. It really tears me apart on a much more base level than anything to do with drones. When somebody has a really bad experience with a police officer, and in my opinion, that officer's been very unreasonable.
Does this mean
it's scary?
Does this mean that you and I need to go and do a grand audit tour?
Why on earth would we do that
with our minis and?
Yeah, let's not push that one, shall we? Graham, what are you up to this weekend? Up to anything exciting?
Granddaughter, seeing granddaughter.
Lovely.
It's Father's Day and therefore Grandfather's Day.
Oh,
double dose.
That's fantastic. We'll have an absolutely fantastic time. There is a link in the description to Graham's website. If you want a consultancy advice in the world of regulation, and you want to find out how he got his 1,000-foot permission and see if you can do the same, then you can email Graham. And when he has space within the many clients that are watching this right now, saying, Sean, don't bring new clients to Graham until he's finished my work, please. But yes, and in particular, it's things like ops manuals, OSC guidance, and that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's guidance. I don't get your hopes up. I'm not writing people's OSCs for them. It is time and commitments don't allow. But I'm happy to advise, and was doing so today with somebody. So yeah.
No, indeed, absolutely. Well, there we go. Thank you very much for a highly supportive live chat this evening. One of the things I really, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it, is we try to bring these topics on a Friday evening. This is not what we all want to be talking about, but it's important that you guys know what's going on firsthand. It's important that you get the information out there. And I always appreciate that my wonderful audience do very rarely attempt to shoot the messenger. Again, I'm really thankful for that. It means that I can confidently bring out these topics to you guys. And I love you all very much for that, frankly. I don't mind getting a little bit soppy because I enjoy this channel and I'd be able to have slightly serious conversations with a fantastic audience. Before I start crying, we'll probably get going. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Geeksvana Live. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.